This is Viewpoint.
Welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Doug Petcash. Trevor's Law is now being fully implemented. In December of 2022, the final step in that effort was taken. The Centers for Disease Control released revised cancer cluster guidelines based on Trevor's Law. The law helps find cancer clusters in communities caused by environmental issues. It mandates federal assistance to those communities experiencing contamination. For the Idaho boy the law is named after, it's been a long journey to get to this point. He is now a full-grown man of 33. Trevor Schaefer was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2002 when he was 13 years old. He and his family believe contaminated water where he grew up in Valley County caused his cancer. His mom did research and found that 4 other kids came down with the same type of brain cancer. Since that time, Schaefer and his mom have worked to make sure communities hit by cancer clusters get the help they deserve. It took a while. In 2016, President Barack Obama signed Trevor's Law. President Donald Trump gave $1 million in funding for the initiative in 2018. Then the CDC started revising cancer cluster guidelines under the law. It finally released those guidelines on December 8th of last year. Schaefer says it makes it easier to define a cluster and puts more emphasis on communication with communities impacted by clusters and collaboration with them to make sure they are heard. Trevor Schaefer also co-founded the Trevor's Trek Foundation, focused on raising awareness about childhood cancer and helping those fighting it. The foundation is getting ready for its first gala fundraiser. We'll talk about that later, but first, the latest on Trevor's Law with my guest, cancer survivor and Trevor's Trek Foundation co-founder and executive director, Trevor Schaefer. Trevor, thank you for being here today.
Good morning, Doug. Great to be with you.
Hey, so first of all, how does it feel to you to get to this point, basically 20 years after this whole journey started for you?
Yeah, it feels great, a little bit surreal, because it's been such a long journey, a lot of stops and starts, and at times it felt like it was dead in the water, and that we weren't going to gain any more momentum or traction. And kind of, at the 11th hour is when everything started to fall into place. So it's a surreal experience still, even a year or 6 months later.
Yeah. Hey, and now with these revised CDC guidelines that are in place, what will Trevor's Law do?
With the new guidelines, what's really important about them is that it creates a better emphasis on communities and communication. And so the new guidelines, one of the most important pieces to the new guidelines that was just introduced in a new concept is the addition of unusual patterns of cancer. So in the old guidelines, when a state or local health department received a cancer cluster concern, they could easily turn away that concern because it was very hard to define a cancer cluster because it had to be all of the same type of cancer. So with this new addition, the introduction of unusual patterns of cancer, it can include multiple types of cancer in an area, which is a lot easier to prove and define. And so it requires the state and local health departments to actually address those concerns, and they can't give the same piecemeal, non-existent answers.
Now, of course, now the education has to happen, and as you see how this plays out, ultimately, what do you hope that the law does once communities are aware of it, the government is looking into these things?
Well, the main thing is the communication between the state and local health departments and the community. And actually on April 13th of this year, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine is holding a workshop that is it's surrounding the potential contributions of cancer genomics information into suspected cancer clusters. And I'm speaking at that conference, and my specific topic will be related to communication about environmental exposure and cancer risk.
So with all these developments, Trevor's Law now is in place and everything. Basically, the government recognizes that your cancer case was part of a cluster, correct?
Yeah, I mean now with new guidelines, it's definitely clear that my cancer at that time was part was part of a cluster. And again, that goes back to the addition of addressing unusual patterns of cancer. I mean, that's it. My cancer and the cluster I was in would fall into that category.
Okay. And how were you contaminated, do you believe?
Well, what we believe is that there was there's a mine about 40 miles outside of McCall, and there's a lot of toxic mine tailings left from previous mining companies. And when we had the big fires in '94, it burned right through the mine and burned all of those toxic mine tailings. And we believe that those carried into the wind patterns and settled into Payette Lake. Now there is a new company, Perpetua, formerly Midas Gold, that is coming in, and they want to do the right thing. They want to clean up what's there, and they want to mine the correct way. And I think that's exactly what the message that we're trying to send, because we need mining, we need the resources. I have a cell phone. You know, everyone loves their cell phones, and we wouldn't have them without mining. We just need to make sure that that companies are involved in business practices in the correct way, and ensuring that they're not contaminating the area around them while they do that.
If you're comfortable with talking about it, how has the cancer, obviously you've beaten it, you're successful in what you're doing in these efforts, but how has it impacted your life?
You know, it's been pretty significant. You know, I'm very fortunate. As you know, it could be a lot worse. I'm here, first of all, and I could have a lot more severe side effects than I do have. But cancer is definitely an experience that stays with you for your entire life. You know, it's not something where someone is cured and then they go back to living their life and life as usual. I mean, I have vision problems and hearing loss and PTSD, but you know, those are all mild symptoms compared to what some of these kids go through.
Yeah, and you know, this took a lot of work. It took a lot of years. Why was it so important for you and your mom to kind of dig your heels in and keep pushing forward with this effort?
Because we needed it. You know, no one was doing it, and the system and the guidelines were very outdated, and we needed to bring them up to the 21st century. And you know, as very early on, it was easy to see that no one was getting help and getting the assistance that they deserved about their health issues and cancer issues.
What role did Senator Mike Crapo play in your effort?
Oh, he played a huge role. You know, without Senator Crapo, we couldn't have gotten a bipartisan support for Trevor's Law, and he jumped on it right in the beginning. And his press secretary at the time, Lindsay Nalder, was very instrumental in that effort, and so his sponsorship of the bill with Senator Boxer created that co-sponsorship, and really helped to get more senators on his side of the aisle on board to help get it passed.
And you've worked with 3 presidential administrations at this point: the Obama administration, the Trump administration, the Biden administration. You were part of President Biden's Cancer Roundtable, and you've said that you want Trevor's Law to be incorporated into his cancer moonshot that basically has the mission of accelerating the rate of progress against cancer and cutting the death rate in half over the next 25 years. Why do you think Trevor's Law would be a good fit in that initiative by President Biden?
Well, you know, I think it's a natural fit because he wants to address cancer. We have to address the causes of it, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the long-term side effects and what these kids go through. And if they're lucky enough to be pronounced cancer-free, they're never really cancer-free. And that's why it's important to focus on causes of cancer, so we can, hopefully prevent some kids from getting cancer and having to experience those issues long term. And so addressing the causes of cancer is very important. And President Biden's son, Beau, who passed away from cancer, he believes that was environmentally induced as well.
Okay. Now that Trevor's Law is being fully implemented, you can kind of, I guess, take a breath, but are you still going to keep an eye on it, monitor it, make sure it's being done correctly?
Yeah, we have to. We cannot just let it go. One thing that I've learned over the years is that we cannot just rely on our government to do it. We need to help them, and we need to see this through and ensure that the proper pressure is being applied for them to follow the guidelines and to move forward and ensure that communities are receiving the support and the help that they deserve and that they need.
And there's another way you are moving forward with this whole effort, and we're going to talk about that coming up after a break. Next on Viewpoint, the foundation Trevor co-founded is getting ready for its first gala fundraiser. We'll talk about the goal of the event and the mission of the Trevor's Trek Foundation when we come back.
There's never been a better time to get away with a great deal on the Hyundai you've always wanted. With America's best warranty and up to 3 years complimentary maintenance. It's your journey. Own every mile at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Now's the time to get in and get away. Get 0% APR, 0 payments for 90 days, and $500 bonus cash on the Tucson or Santa Fe. See your Bronco Motors Hyundai dealer.
The wall-to-wall sale at Furniture Row has been extended, and that means every sofa, dining table, and bed is still on sale. Find sofas with clean contemporary styling to laid-back premium comfort, dining tables with simple elegance to sophisticated polished marble tops, beds with lovely mission styling, and two-tone cottage charm. Save up to $150 on Athlete's Choice mattresses, plus 3 years no interest. But hurry, the extended wall-to-wall sale at Furniture Row ends soon.
Has your cable TV lost its spark? Do you suffer from the buffer? You deserve reliable TV without the hassle and the frustration. A-Plus Satellite is your premier local dish retailer, serving the Treasure Valley with reliable TV and real customer service for over 15 years. If you have Sparklight TV, switching to dish with A-Plus Satellite could save you over $700 a year. Stop in for a face-to-face with A-Plus Satellite at Fairview and Eagle, behind Krispy Kreme.
We so amazing.
The stylish Chevy Equinox RS and Chevy Blazer RS.
So captivating.
You don't have to be an influencer to be an influencer. The RS family of Chevy SUVs, definitely worth a follow. Get 2.9% financing plus make no monthly payments for 90 days on all Equinox models. Or current competitive owners get $1,750 total cash allowance. See your Treasure Valley Chevy dealers today.
Welcome back to Viewpoint. The Trevor's Trek Foundation is dedicated to promoting the awareness of childhood cancer clusters that exist in America's communities and supporting the implementation of Trevor's Law through community action, collaboration, and coordination. According to the Foundation's website, the Foundation is committed to its mission to help facilitate research into the causes of childhood cancer and to develop the means to eradicate those causes. Trevor's Trek Foundation believes in creating positive environments and fostering more awareness for those affected by childhood cancer. And to help carry out that mission, it's holding its first Brave and Bold Gala fundraiser at 6:30 on May 19th at the Arid Club in Boise. The guest speaker is environmental activist Erin Brockovich. Individual tickets are $1,000. You can get event, ticket, and sponsorship information on the Foundation's website, trevorstrek.org. Once again, my guest today is Trevor's Trek Foundation co-founder and executive director, Trevor Schaefer. So, Trevor, this is the first Brave and Bold fundraiser for the Foundation. How does it feel to you to get to this point with the Foundation?
Yeah, it's really exciting. We're working with a local company to move our mission forward and drive our mission forward, Idaho Regional Waste Services. And it's kind of the collaboration that we've wanted to get to all along, is to be able to work together to make change. And I feel like we're finally on that path. We've been doing a couple things internally within the Foundation to help move our mission forward, from tracking childhood cancer cases, identifying childhood cancer clusters across the country. We have a team of scientists that we work with to investigate impacted areas that are impacted by childhood cancer clusters. And that final piece that that we've been searching for, and I think we're finally finding, is what do we do once we find a contamination source in an impacted community? And through our partnership, we can do that because part of it is to develop products to address childhood cancer clusters and contamination sources, which is really positive. And another part, which also I'm very excited about, is to part of our new mission is to unite science and industry to improve best practices, which like we were talking about earlier with the mining outside of McCall, and their message of wanting to come in and do it right and clean it up and not contaminate the ground and the water and the air. And I think that's very important because when you attack a company for pollution or causing a potential cluster, and rightfully so, but if they get fined or they get slapped on the wrist, what happens? They go back to business as usual and continue to pollute. So if we can help them to improve their best practices, so they're not going back to business as usual, and they're being more careful about how they do their business and not contaminating the area around them, that's really important.
So not just punishment, but also giving them the resources, the education to do it differently.
Yeah. And it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes because there have been a lot of bad acts by certain companies and industries. But I really think it's the strongest path forward.
Okay. How do you define the overall mission of the Trevor's Trek Foundation? You've got it's kind of a broad mission.
Yeah, it's very broad, and it gets pretty detailed into what exactly we're trying to accomplish. But the overall mission is to ensure that communities, that our children are safe and that they are not being exposed to toxins in our environment.
So do you help facilitate research and communication, education, and you already talked about reaching out to these industries too? Yeah,
doing that, working with our scientists to uncover causes in a community and toxic exposure. And also improving accountability, like the travesty in East Palestine, Ohio, with the train wreck. That all goes back to accountability. They need to be held accountable for what they've done, and also improving best practices so this kind of thing does not happen again, because there was definitely some lack of oversight.
Now, Erin Brockovich, as I mentioned before, is the speaker at the gala that's coming up on May 19th. Of course, she was made famous by the movie Erin Brockovich, which Julia Roberts won an Oscar for portraying Erin. The movie tells the story of Erin's work on a lawsuit against an energy company involving groundwater contamination, making people sick in a California town. How big of a deal is it to you to have her as your speaker at this first ever gala?
Oh, it's huge, and like you said, she's a pioneer. She pretty much started the whole environmental justice movement and got it on the map. And it's very important to and it means a lot to have her on board. And want to help and move forward with this, because she definitely has learned a lot over the years that we can learn from.
And what else is involved with the gala? People go, what are they going to?
Yeah, so it'll be, we're having a pre-event cocktail hour for our sponsors, and Erin will be at that as well. And then there will be a dinner, live auction, presentation by Erin, and a paddle race to end the night.
It's always a great way to raise money too. And so, perhaps you don't have a goal as far as fundraising goes, but how crucial will this be a successful night to carrying out your foundation's mission?
Yeah, it's very important, because what we want to accomplish and are trying to accomplish is it takes quite a bit of financial ability to do that. We want to, first product that we are introducing at the gala that we're working with IRWS here locally on is called VOC Pro Shield, which is a coating to coat recycled rubber products, so like crumb rubber that's put onto athletic fields and rubber playground mulch to prevent the off-gassing of the volatile organic compounds, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and heavy metals.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, very easy.
Yeah, I mean, because that stuff is used extensively now, so this is all just an effort to protect athletes, children, and others.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been a lot of issues surrounding crumb rubber on fields, particularly with youth soccer players and goalies, because they're exposed to it a lot more and the toxins that are in it. So, but it is something we need. I mean, I think with water issues and drought around the country, it's important to look at those, artificial turf and things like that, but we have to make sure that they're safe.
All right, Trevor, so do you see yourself, this being your mission for the rest of your life?
I see it for a long time, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any shortage of need to be able to clean up our environment and help protect it from toxins and chemicals, so.
Well, thanks for coming in today to share your story and hopefully, help getting the word out about the big fundraiser too.
Thanks a lot, Doug. I appreciate it.
And once again, the Trevor's Trek Foundation is holding its first Brave and Bold Gala fundraiser at 6:30 on May 19th at the Arid Club in Boise. Again, the guest speaker, environmental activist Aaron Brockovich. You can get event, ticket, and sponsorship information on the foundation's website, trevorstrek.org. Up next on Viewpoint, a real-life, absolutely true fish tale. The legend of Lonesome Larry, the Redfish Lake sockeye salmon, and the legacy he leaves behind that's still spawning good things today.
Deliver yourself. The Audi Q5. Get exceptional offers at your local Audi dealer.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. All I do is win, win. Everybody hands go up. All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind.
Now the story of Lonesome Larry, the fish who some say is solely responsible for saving Idaho's sockeye salmon. Here's Brian Holmes.
We raise fish, breed fish.
From small fries to yearling smolts, millions of sockeye salmon start their lives here at the Eagle Fish Hatchery.
We run a nursery and we kind of replace the natural production that used to happen in Redfish Lake.
The fish hatchery functions with a focus on the future, but it also has a storied history. Well, one story in particular connects it to Redfish Lake.
You know, Redfish got its name because there were thousands of fish that came back.
That was generations ago, when tens of thousands of sockeye would make the 900-mile journey back to spawn from the Pacific, the most arduous swim for North American sockeye.
The highest in elevation, furthest south, furthest inland. Redfish got its name because of all the red fish that were, in there.
So many salmon, the story goes, you could walk across the water on their backs. But then came the dams, and after decades of declining return numbers, Idaho's Snake River sockeye salmon was put on the endangered species list for the first time in 1991. Then a year later, in late summer, just one fish returned to redfish.
Yeah, just one fish.
They called him Lonesome Larry.
This first arrival is a treasured sight.
As a representative of a species that's almost gone, it's very special. We're glad to see him back, and hopefully some others that have started the trip will also make it.
Well, they didn't.
It was a shock, but it was a shock we saw coming.
And that shock sparked a movement, which began when Lonesome Larry was moved to the Eagle Fish Hatchery. A broodstock savior program was hatched, where Larry's sperm was used to fertilize new generations of sockeye.
And he was the catalyst that certainly brought an awful lot of attention to the plight of Redfish Lake sockeye.
Which is why, even before the fruits of Lonesome Larry's labor could be felt, in August of 1993, dozens of people, including Jamie Lee Curtis,
This is Cecil, ladies and gentlemen.
they themselves returned to Redfish to watch and help release.
The 8 sockeye released today represent the future of the run.
And to begin restoring the species.
Dwindling numbers.
And it's worked. Since then, Snake River sockeye salmon have rebounded.
2022 was our largest return since 2014, and we got just under 800 adults back.
And thanks to what's happening at the Eagle Hatchery, many share the same genetic code as Lonesome Larry.
We put, I think it was close to 1,000 fish in Redfish Lake last year.
All inspired by one Lonesome Larry.
Yes.
Lonesome Larry, a legendary story, sure, but also a cautionary tale. What if you guys did nothing?
There probably wouldn't be a Redfish Lake stock. I doubt there'd be any sockeye in Redfish.
Larry wasn't the only salmon removed from Redfish Lake in 1992 to jumpstart the breeding process. There were about a dozen or so taken to the Eagle Fish Hatchery in the early 90s. And they still have several milk samples cryogenically frozen should something catastrophic happen to the species. Sockeye salmon are still under protected status on the Snake River. That's all of our time for this week's Viewpoint. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you tonight on the Sunday News at 5 and 10, and then right back here next Sunday morning for another Viewpoint.